Okay, good afternoon, good morning. The issue I'm going to speak today is about the Rambam. This is a continuation of discussions about what the Rambam has, explained to all of us, the Jewish people, that we should know, hashkafa-wise, what our outlook should be, what our philosophy, on whatever level that philosophy might be. It might not be the most deep understanding, but we should know the basics on whatever level we're holding, and we can always continue to go from step to step to step, okay, up the ladder, as it were. I would like to cover the issue of the Arba Shleimios, the four perfections in Maimonides. Now, basically, when you're learning the guide to the perplexed, in the last chapter of the guide, okay? The last chapter, the guide explains, and this is like what you find all over even by the Greeks or the Romans, it's a mitzias, it's a fact. There are four areas of perfection, as it were. There's the physical perfection, and then there's a financial perfection. I don't mean perfect in the sense of the usual term, but the idea is, that you've reached some kind of a level which one is attempting to get to, okay? One wants to be strong or stronger or strongest physically. One wants to be well-to-do, not have any needs, money-wise, financially, or he wants to be wealthy, or he wants to be one of the super rich, etc., okay? And then there's the perfection bein odom l'chaveiro, the midosius, the character, dealing with other people and situations, etc., okay? Doing it right, doing it in a way that it makes sense. And then there's something else, number four. Number four, basically, is the perfection of the intellect, but not just, algebra and trigonometry and science, but an understanding of God's ways. Okay? Now, the Rambam in the 54th chapter, the last chapter in the guide, a very important one, the closing one, the siyum, the conclusion, okay? He talks about this in detail. And the question, of course, might be, why does he wait all the way to the end? And another question might be, wait a minute, it looks to me like if you look into it, maybe in a whole bunch of places, he's alluding to some of these perfections, and perhaps all of them, maybe three, maybe four, whatever. Okay. I asked this question of Rabbi Kapach, that why does he leave, this thing all the way to the end? And actually, it seems like he is alluding to it throughout in a number of places, besides other books of his, like the Sefer HaMitzvot, or even the Yad HaChazaka. When I asked him this question about the way he waits to the end to come out with this, Rabbi Kapach, he said, tippin, tippin. That he gradually gives you a little bit of taste, but you have to dig for it before you get there. And then he gives you the whole thing, okay? It becomes very, very clear. What he says in this last chapter is, physical perfection is really not a real perfection. It's not a shleimus. It's not something really tremendous. An animal also is strong. In fact, if you look at it and you think about it, the strongest man in the world is not going to be as strong as an elephant for sure. Okay? There are animals which are far more powerful in physical might and power than the human being. It's not, and it doesn't make the human being for a human being this power or this physical prowess. This is not what makes him for an Odom. The same thing applies to money, to finance, to position in the financial hierarchy. Even a king who has at his beck and call all types of wealth and all types of assets, he's no different than you or I. If you take away the wealth, there's no difference between us. We're both human beings. One person may have a lot more money than another. One person may have done it honestly. One person may have done it dishonestly. That's a different discussion, obviously. But there's discussions about that in the Rambam too, in Maimonides. Beautiful discussions. And very, very to the point. Loshen Tamchiti. Brief and to the point. Once you get to the third shleimus, now you're talking about character. That seems to be more mamoshes. He's a real wonderful guy. He is a true human being. True. But that perfection, that shleimus, requires another person, requires other things. Just like when you have wealth, it's outside the person. The strength is not that person, okay? It's not the humanness of it. To some degree, your interaction with other individuals requires other individuals to be there. To be a Baal Stoker, to be a Baal Chesed, or to be something, of that nature, you require someone else to be there. It is not something that you have and you are independent from everybody else. It's not just really you alone, okay? It's something requiring another. That's what Maimonides says here in the 54th chapter. But when he gets to the perfection of the true human perfection, as he calls it, Hamin Haravi Hashleimat hu Anoishius hu Amitis. And what is that human being? He says, the Ashogus Hamailus Hahigionius, that is to say, Siur Muskolis Hamavius Lashkopis Amitius Binyonim Aloikim. And in Maimonides' scheme of things, in other words, you have your, how should we say, metaphysics down pat. You understand God's ways. I mean, other people, metaphysics in other religions, it can be understanding God himself. We don't go that route. We can only understand his ways. And we can take them and adapt them and use them to conduct ourselves in the world with other people. We take it back down again. And our actions in the area of finance, in the area of, the physical area, we take it back down again, and we raise these other areas to a more, how should we say, semi-divine level. You understand, as much as is possible. But what he continues to say over there, this is the tachlis hasophius. This is the end purpose, to have this grasp and understanding that the intellect will give you regarding God's ways and how to understand the world and how to deal with people and how to act in every aspect of life. This is true life. The Rambam, by the way, does say, Chaim, life is deot nachonot, correct views. And by the way, he says elsewhere, nachon means it can't be otherwise. So it's extremely correct. In other words, these things are understood with an apodictic certainty, if you'll pardon my using somewhat of a philosophical term. Absolute. Okay. Certain things you can know absolutely, and then there's certain things which are korav lenachon, which are, you can only reach a degree of certainty which is not totally certain, but you have a pretty high degree of certainty. Okay. What he says really interesting after this is, and what we've been talking, being madgish, we've been emphasizing before, this is something separate from the actual human being, the physical, the financial, or the ben odam l'chavera, the character, because they have to come on to others. Even though most of the mitzvahs have to do with being with other people. Right? But here he says a very interesting lashon. This is what you really are, this understanding of metaphysics and being able to act that way, and of course doing it. Doing it is going to constantly reinforce it and build it up and be mavassis it. In other words, give it a foundation, give it a tchuna, a nature which becomes not only a second or third nature, but a first nature, a tchuna chazaka, a very powerful nature that becomes you. Okay? It's you now. You've worked your way out of the regular morass of, the pitfalls. Okay? And he says this particular shleimus is what gives you your kiyum hanitzchi. This is what you take with you forever. It is forever. This is your link to ewigkeit, to permanence, permanent perdurance, as it were. The kiyum hanitzchi. This is something that's, in other words, in olam haba. This is what will last. This will be forever. Ubezeh ha'adam, uba ha'adam adam. And in this state that you can achieve, that's the true adam. He's not contingent on any other thing around. He's sort of a monad, as it were. But as I said before, and the Rambam discusses at the end of this chapter, this is not just an Aristotelian or a Greek or a Roman idea. These are a fact of life, these shleimus, okay, if you think about it. But he also says that this is rooted in the Torah, and you find it in the words of Yirmiyahu Hanavi, Jeremiah, and where he discusses certain things at the end of the guide over here, that the purpose is to take these understandings and to come back down with them. Not to live in a world of pure contemplation. Not like an Aristotelian, again. Okay? We've discussed that. This is not Aristotle. You come back down again. In other words, and he mentions the psukim over there, and he says like this. This is what he says that very beautifully, and I want to quote him here directly. I want to read it to you. Kiyum b'zeishis halal amishhalal haskel b'yodea oisi. And he says, think about it, reflect on it. His boinen, kama tamtziti, how, brief and compact this wording is, okay, in Jeremiah. Okay? And how perfect this statement is. And he says he doesn't go away from anything that we're talking about, and he explains that this is what the prophet wants to tell us. And then he stops. No, but he doesn't stop. No, it's not just pure contemplation, Aristotelian or some other similar philosophy. No. It doesn't say, Haskel v'yodei oisi kani echad. This is the main thing and this is it, and reflect on it. He doesn't say that. Or some other idea, ain't like Tumuna. He's not a physical being. Which all these ideas are very important. And we have to know them, right? Or there's nobody like me. Haskel b'yadei Isaac ein kamoini. No, that's not it. But he says the hispirus, the pride, the feeling of understanding, and that you get with this great understanding and become a human being is through understanding God's ways. Like when Moshe said, let me know your ways, and then God passes before him, okay? And what does the prophet say? He says, Chesed mishpat tzedakah. This is what he says. Ba'oretz. You should do chesed, mishpat, tzedakah, ba'oretz, ki be'ele chopatzti. This is what I would like you to do. I have a chayfetz. I have a desire that this is what you should do. This is how you should emulate my ways. Not just thinking totally only about me, but actually implementing, bringing me down into the world. Just like Avraham Avinu started the first, movement, took the Rabbanu Shalom, as it were, out of Golos, and it was continuing all the way down. And it was Nishlam when there was a Torah and where God revealed his ways. That's what you should. This is a Tzir HaTorah. This is a central theme. It has to be Ba'oretz. Okay? This is what the Novi says. This is not Aristotle, as I said to you on another occasion. It's very important. And it's very, very, very interesting that this idea of four perfections that are discussed, because it's a fact and dwelt upon, is found in Jeremiah a long, long time ago. Maybe they learned it from us, how it will be utilized. By the way, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I saw it, but there is a Neoplatonist, and he talks about people going all the way to the top, having a certain idea, and then coming back down again. It's in the Aeneads, okay? I think it's in the last Aeneid, and whatever. He's supposed to be a Neoplatonist too, by the way, himself, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've seen it, but there is a similarity. But it's this Plotinus, I think it was quite a bit after the prophet Jeremiah. But there seems to be somewhat almost of a parallel. But this is what Ki ani Hashem oiseh chesed u'mishpat u'tzedakah ba'oretz. That's what you're supposed to know with your understanding that you've been given. There happens to be another phrase somewhere in the beginning of the Akdama, somewhere there's an Akdama from Maimonides on Mishnayos, and he talks about the Rabbanu Shalom has only halacha, the Arba Amma Shel Halacha in the world. And in there he just has a discussion about the person who is a very special Talmid Chacham and does everything that he's supposed to do. And he mentioned the one is described as being a klil hamada v'hamaisa, a keli who has the tremendous mada, understanding in all things on a deep, deep, level, okay? And it's Lamaisa. That's a very nice title. Sometimes you see someone will refer to somebody in a salutation or in a book or in a letter, the Klil Hamada V'Amaisa. So I think I've given you an introduction here, and I'll be continuing in another, how shall we say, video with how this is to be found in Maimonides. But I hope we got started.